Welcome to our Bringing Dreams and Miracles Together podcast, where we share meaningful conversations about building families through surrogacy and egg donation. I'm Stacy Swiderski, founder and CEO of Family Source Consultants. In this episode, Sarah Martin, our Director of Operations, is joined by Niki Renslow, an experienced surrogate, to offer a unique glimpse into the surrogate's perspective. Niki shares heartfelt stories and valuable insights from her journeys, helping intended parents gain a deeper understanding of the surrogate experience and how it can guide their own path to parenthood. Welcome, everyone, to the Family Source Consultants podcast. Today, I'm very excited. We have a wonderful topic. We're going to be talking about understanding the surrogate's perspective and insights from a perspective. Basically, what intended parents can learn from listening to our surrogates. And I'm not only excited because it's an excellent topic, but because of my guest. She may be very, very familiar to some of you. She is Niki Renslow. She is our manager of match operations. So why it's so incredible that she is the guest today is because she has been a trusted third-party professional for close to 10 years and as well as an experienced surrogate. So she's been supporting intended parents, surrogates, recipient parents, and donors alike all throughout her career and on their own journeys. And she has just wonderful insight into this topic. And so we're going to be able to talk to her today about, Niki, we're going to be talking about your personal surrogacy experience and just what you've learned, being a part of so many beautiful journeys. And so let's just launch right into it. Niki, I'm going to turn the mic over to you, and you just tell us a little bit more about yourself, about your surrogacy journey, your experience as a surrogate, and then we're just going to dive into, what intended parents really can glean from their surrogate and that relationship.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everybody. As Sarah stated, my name is Niki. I am the manager of the match operations here at FSC. I've been a surrogate and an egg donor. Absolutely love what I do. So funny enough, my career that I thought I was going to retire in was mortgage and mortgage underwriting. I am a huge numbers person, absolutely loved it. And oh my goodness, when the kids were young, so I have a almost 18-year-old, 15, and 8-year-old. So I just had the two at the time. I was like, I've had really good, easy pregnancies. I actually had a few friends who were surrogates, and I was like, I think I could do this, right? At the time, I didn't want any more kiddos, and we applied. And funny enough, I applied, got accepted, and was a surrogate, which landed me this entire career, right? So to go back, I applied and I was matched with an amazing couple. And long story short, we can jump into my journey a little bit here. But in 2013, I gave birth to twins for the best, most amazing international. They're a same-sex couple. I still talk to them to this day, but essentially fell so much in love with my journey that in 2015, we had initially moved to Virginia. I'm originally from Arizona. We moved to Virginia, and I was like, I kind of got the itch not to be a surrogate again, but to really help, right? I was like, I loved my journey. I loved what I did, and found a case management position at an agency a while ago, applied, and here I am. That started and launched my career in surrogacy. I left behind a career in mortgage and love, 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 love what I do.
Well, and we love that you're a part of our team and you do such an excellent job. And so I really, want to launch. Let's start with, what are some things that you learned through your journey as you connected with your intended parents? Like, I think a lot of times too, intended parents really have to rely on their surrogate for information, for updates. Of course, with a surrogacy journey, there's, you have a case coordinator, you're working with your fertility clinic. There's all kinds of people that you're, touching base with and connecting all along the way. But oftentimes the surrogate is that first point of contact. She's experiencing the pregnancy, and she's connecting with the doctors first and all those things. And so just from your perspective as a surrogate, what was that communication like with your intended parents? And what was really important for them to understand from you and learn from you and, those types of things.
Yeah, this is a good question and one that I like to talk about. I think something that's good to talk to surrogates and intended parents alike about is a lot of things might happen that you weren't expecting, right? Not to go too far into the weeds, but our journey was a little bit longer than most. I had gone in with two children of my own. My pregnancies and my deliveries were easy, flawless, never had any type of fertility issues. And with my journey, I had miscarried twice, had a third
Mm.
frozen failed transfer. They had another surrogate that they had moved to, had two failed transfers, and they kind of quit the process for almost a year.
Wow.
Actually, yeah, came back. The fertility doctor that we all worked with called them and was like, I have an egg donor. She's proven cycles have gone great. Let's make more embryos. This one's on me, essentially. And they had come
Wow.
back and were like, we want to do it with you. And I was like, no, we don't. Love you all. But I had gone back. I had a great underwriting position at a really large bank. Absolutely loved it. And it's funny you talk about communication because throughout the journey, I became close with them. My husband became close with them. And it was actually John, my husband, who was like, you got one more in you. And I was like, okay, I sure do. But with that communication through our hiccups in the journey, I had gotten the information first, right? I was at the ultrasounds first. I had gotten the blood results first. And so it's okay to figure out if you want to tell them or you want to have a medical professional
That's
tell
right.
them how you want to communicate, right? There's no really expectation. And this is actually one thing that I love about us, Sarah, is we talk about this during our match meetings. Hey, a
Yes.
miscarriage can happen, right? Let's talk about this. How are we going to navigate this together as intended parents and as a surrogate? If this is something that's never happened to you before, it can happen. This is IVF, right? And so I love the fact that we actually touch on that, like before we even match parties together, because that is so huge. And we talk about that communication and we talk about those preferences because we do want to match you like-minded surrogates and like-minded intended parents. And I'll always say communication, it's like a garden. The more you put into it, right, the more it grows and turns into this beautiful organic thing. It's okay to not have expectations in the beginning and think it's going to end up one way. It's okay if it ends up another way. I still talk to them to this day. They're like our second family. So, you
Right.
know,
And you just hit on
it goes.
a couple of things I really want to kind of drill down into and talk about that I think are so
Yeah.
crucial to this topic is one, and everyone who is a part of this journey understands pregnancies can be complicated. IVF is
Oh, yeah.
complicated. There's, you know, you know, you may not get pregnant on the first transfer. I mean, it looks like before you delivered um your surrogacy tummy buddy, you had four transfers.
Yeah. Total.
Yeah.
Four.
So it's like, and all of that through that, it's like at the end of the day, you have this beautiful child, you help this beautiful child come into the world. So I just want to
Two.
acknowledge like the
Twins.
two, that's right. It was twins. That's
Two.
right. That's right. So incredible, and like
Yeah.
that, but you and the intended
Thank
parents
you.
along the way went through so much together in that
Hmm.
journey. So many highs, so many, high highs and low lows. And so difficult. And then, so I want to talk kind of about that a little further. And like you said, you led right into something so crucial is that who communicates what when there's tough, situations. And that is something that, of course, we prioritize, and I even on match meetings, I want to talk about that kind of first. Let's get through the tough stuff first and
Okay.
get into the
Yep.
fun stuff at the end. But it's so important to think about those types of things up front from the beginning because
Oh, yeah.
you don't want to be thinking about them. Oh, what do I do in the moment? And go, okay, we kind of already have a plan in place. And what's amazing is our case coordinators like lean on your case coordinator, both intended parents and surrogate. So even though you have this plan in place, which I want to talk about, um, you also have your case coordinator. And,
Hmm.
sometimes plans change, feelings change, thoughts change. Going, oh, I thought I would feel this way. Back when we matched, I thought this was going to be fine. And I really need help and I don't know what to do. And so I need to talk to my case coordinator and figure out a plan. That's what they're there for, is to facilitate all the things, even communication. And so on top of that, I always say in the match meeting, and this is my, for surrogates and intended parents, a lot of it, feels like a first date. Everyone's got their best foot forward. Everyone's being polite and kind and, all those things. And I love it. But I'm like, you have to be honest. If there is something you're wanting, say it now. I always say this on match meetings. I'm sure you do as well. You know, if you guys have a specific thought or feeling or want, like if you as a surrogate or you as a parent are really wanting a certain form of communication or type of communication or cadence in your communication, say it now. Like, let's all as a
Hmm.
group decide. No matter what, at the end of the day, again, just like a dating relationship or friend or whatever, your relationship and communication style is going to kind of evolve naturally anyway. Like, you may you may think, oh, it's going to be very polite and easy and normal, and you guys might really form an incredible bond and be
Hmm.
communicating all day every day, and you had no idea that was going to happen. All that's normal. But it's just really important, and I want to hear from the surrogate's perspective too. Like, what did you learn about, like, what, I should have been more open up front, or I should have, my perspective is, this or that about. So I just said a lot of things. So what,
Yep.
what are your response to all those things?
I love it. That's so funny. I tell intended parents and surrogates it's a chaperone first date, right? I
That's
was like,
right.
I'll be your chaperone. I'll be your guide. Don't worry. So that's so funny. I love that you do that too. I think I tell too much up front, right? I'm like one of those people that's like da da da, and I was like, oh, did I say that? Was that my impression? So
I
I
bet
think
your
that's
intended
helpful.
fathers loved it though. I bet they're like, okay, we've got a live one on the on the other end right here who's going to talk to us. And I think that's
Yeah.
most intended parents going, please don't be shy. Tell me what's going on with the pregnancy. It's our
Oh,
pregnancy, so I need to know.
for sure. I was like, come in the room after you have kids. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, do what you need to do. Like, you're involved, right? And my husband's the same way. Like, just da 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 da. Like, we're both just loud, talkative, So it was helpful. But it's okay if you're not that way too. And not a lot of intended parents are that way either, right? Which is why it's important up front when you're working with our onboarding team and as intended parents, when you're working with us on the matching team. What kind of communication do you want? What kind of communication are you comfortable with? You don't have to have a lifelong friendship. That's okay. Some intended parents don't want that. Some surrogates don't want that. If you want a lifelong friendship and you want a surrogate who's going to be like an auntie to your children, we'll make sure that we find that for you too. Like that's
Right.
okay. There's no right or wrong when it comes to communication. And that's the one thing that I always try to state, right? Like we have requirements, we have preferences for both surrogates and intended parents. Communication, let's talk about it.
That's
Because if
right.
you're like, hey, we're going to want communication to die down, you're probably going to not want to match with somebody like me. Because want to talk, see what's
Yeah,
going on. How are things going, right? We're gonna be able to find you that perfect match. So
that's
that's why I
right.
love, having these conversations.
Absolutely. What do you feel like too your intended parents learned from you? Like, what did they kind of get, what did they learn from their surrogate?
They're so fun. It made me I felt really happy. That's how I knew I had a close relationship with them because they had had two surrogates, right? I was there first, and then after my miscarriages and my third failed transfer, they had matched with a second surrogate. And she had two failed transfers, but they came back to me and were like, we want to, close kind of the circle with you, which was really, really nice. So I think my husband and my family had a lot to do with that as well. We
Mm.
got really close. They knew like the holidays were really big. They brought my kids Halloween costumes because the twins were born in November and got to experience like a lot of American culture. They got to experience a lot of sarcasm and firehouse humor, as we call it. My husband's a firefighter. And it's so funny because we got to a point one point where as their twins were growing, there was a boy and a girl, and the son really loved firefighters, right? And they were like, maybe, a little bit of your husband's DNA got in there because boy, does he love his fire trucks and whatnot. So we were joking around laughing about that, right?
That's
But
funny.
we ended up with a really good relationship, which I'm thankful for. But the best thing that I think they learned is never give up because they
Mhm.
quit after her. They were like, we're done. And it was actually the IVF doctor who was like, no, we got another round in us. And they called me and I
So
was like,
I want to stop you.
all
So
right.
basically,
Yeah.
the twins need to credit
Hmm.
that IVF doctor and your husband for
Yes.
really and that's such a interesting part about surrogacy. If your surrogate is partnered, they often play a really big role in this journey as
Huge.
well. And that's one of the reasons why it's like we make sure that a surrogate's partner, if partnered, is on the match meeting because
Hmm.
they're a part of the journey because they're your support network. So that's something I think intended parents really, you know, it's an excellent opportunity for them to just continue to gather members of the village helping with their
Hmm.
build their family, and those
So
partners can
huge.
be really an integral part of the journey and a big support to you. I mean, support looks all kinds of way. A lot of our single surrogates have incredible parents that are
Oh yeah.
involved, or like their sister is there,
Or best friends.
or best
We
friend. Oh my gosh,
did the podcast with
yes.
one of our surrogates, and her best friend was
That's
such an
right.
integral part of like her entire process.
Huge.
So
Yeah. So
yeah.
that support person, whoever it is, however it looks like, is a big part of the journey. And so
Oh yeah.
don't count that out. Also like, all right, Sarah, who is on this journey with us? Like, we've had, even on those match meetings for, our single surrogates, going, okay, my mom's here with me today, or my best friend, whoever it is,
Mhm.
that's a big, their sister, whoever, is a part of this with them is a part of the journey. And so,
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent, point. What about things that they asked you that maybe surprised you, if you can think back, where it's like, oh, this is amazing. I didn't know they didn't know this. And they're, they're coming to me for this information.
I think honestly, like the whole process, right? They were just the sweetest. So,
Yeah.
what was I think the transfer, they were like, oh, I was like, yeah, this is the procedure. Like it's not bad, but when you're two men a lot of times who aren't around like a lot of you've never gone to an OBGYN appointment and got a pap smear, right? It's like, oh. So it was like, yeah, no, like we're fine, right? So that was a big thing. They were like, are you okay? Are you feeling okay? They actually
Right?
taught me a lot. I lived in Arizona and our fertility clinic was in Connecticut. So I learned a lot about Broadway from them. We went and saw Wicked on Broadway and, learned a
Love
bunch of
that.
cool stuff, right? Yeah. So two cultures like completely colliding. It was really, really, really neat. And the transfer was a big one. Our miscarriages, when we went in, they did the heartbeat confirmation ultrasound and then they were like, there's no heartbeat. So come back in
Mm.
another week. And then we were comfortable enough and I was comfortable enough talking to them to where they were like, is that normal? How do you feel? And I was like, you know, I like to say the term you'll hear a lot in surrogacy is cautious optimism,
That's right.
cautiously optimistic. And, when I talked to them and I was like, hey, it's going to be a miscarriage. And the first one we did, we took the medicine. The second one, we all kind of opted for a DNC after my experience for the first one. So they were just very much like, what goes into that? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Like, what can we do? So the sweetest, it was really the concern was, how are you feeling? Is everything okay? And to be fully transparent, I didn't go with FSC, right? It was a long time ago. I went with the first agency that one of my friends recommended to me.
Sure.
They're a
Yeah.
large agency where you're kind of just like a number. My case manager wasn't really involved, right? So I ended up going into preterm labor with the twins. I was on bed rest in the
Oh,
hospital, and I was doing all the communication at the time because they
wow.
were, yeah, we kind of handled our own journey on our own, right? So there were a lot of questions like, hey, should we get to Arizona from France? Is not easy, by the way. And I was like, no, the hospital thinks I'm going to be here until 34 weeks and then we can do a C-section. lo and behold, I only made it to 32. Um,
Whew.
so it was, yeah, so it was very much like, are you okay? What do we need to expect? What's the NICU like? Like, what do we do? Because the twins ended up being in the NICU for 5 weeks. So
Oh.
it was very much
Whew.
like they ended up getting an Airbnb like right in our neighborhood, maybe 5 minutes away from us. So we could all kind of do it
Oh,
together.
that's
Like, thank
incredible.
goodness. So yeah, where should we go? What do we need? What do we pack? How do we do what pediatrician do you recommend? So there was a lot of that. But yeah, I mean, they're thriving now.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, and
Yeah.
I'm sure, especially, if you didn't feel like you had, support from, that third party,
Mhm.
entity, you were really there, you were coordinating your case. It sounds like you were having to
Yeah.
do a lot of informing. It kind of reminds me of one of the favorite emails I've ever received from intended parents was we have been so excited and so focused on getting pregnant. Now that we are, I don't know what to do with this baby when I get it home.
Hmm. So
It
common,
was like,
right?
it just,
Yeah.
I just, he said, my husband and I just went, oh, we have to parent this child and take care of it once it gets here, and it was so funny. And it was like, okay, I was like, get ready for resources. Here's, 3 books to read, and let's connect with your hospital and see if they have a new parents class, and let's do this, and let's do this. And also you're going to be just fine. Just like all first time parents, you learn as you go. But
Mm.
even with, I was just thinking about that email and just with the story you shared about really like walking them through the physicality of the pregnancy, but also like, okay, babies are here now. This is what's next. I mean, you really, in some ways, when you're first time parents, your surrogate is part of training you how to be a parent and how to take care of a newborn.
Full transparency. So they were little, right? Babies were
Yeah.
slightly over 3 pounds, slightly under 4. And
Wow.
they're like, when I held them, I was like, I don't know what to do. So we were
Right?
like, dear nurses in the hospital, thank you. NICU nurses are some of
Yes.
the best humans, right? But I
Some
was
of the
like,
best
this,
humans, yes.
this sweetest little babes. And I was like even I'm nervous, right? And so lean heavily on your nurses and that hospital staff too.
That's right. It's an excellent
Yeah,
point. And then, just what a thing to go through together.
yeah,
Yeah, wow. What else do you
it's
really
pretty
feel
cool.
like that is important for intended parents to kind of look to the surrogate for?
I
I
think
think,
it's
and I
okay.
and while you're thinking about what to say, of course, I just want to acknowledge up front for intended parents, like what a thing to trust another human
Hmm.
with. Like, just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge any parents that are listening, as you're wherever you are in your journey. Like we know trusting another person with like
Hmm.
literally the most precious, tender part of your life and putting it in somebody else's hands is
Oh yeah.
a massive thing to do. And what a difficult thing to have to release a certain amount of control to. Because, like you
That's what
just
it
said, your intended parents were in France and you were over here in this, in this state. We work with
was okay.
international intended parents all the time. They're literally trusting, someone from in another country to carry their child. And so it's a massive thing to trust someone with.
Mhm.
So maybe that's really the question is like, how can they, release some of that control and trust you? And what type of communication helps with that?
I think you have to, right? Because
Whether you
you
want
you
to
will
or
go
not, you
crazy,
have to.
like
Yeah.
yeah, like trying to control this entire thing. Like I completely get that and I empathize. That's got to be tough, right? But understand, like with our surrogates, this isn't their first time, right?
Yeah.
Of course, we're cautious when we're carrying our own children. Absolutely. But when you're carrying someone else's child, you're really like, okay, like you get a little bit more nervous,
Of
right? I don't
course.
know if it's just like I was listening to a podcast actually, funny enough, one day, and they were talking about like motorcyclists, and there was a study done where I kid you not, like if they had a helmet on, they drove riskier, right? And I'm like, surrogacy, it's like the helmet's off almost, right? Because it's like this is something that's new. So we have to like really prepare. Like
right.
After the transfer, they don't want you to do enough activity to where your ponytail is going back and forth until really we have that confirmation beta blood test, right?
That's
And
right.
so it's trust the process, trust your clinic, trust the surrogate. By the time you've been matched, she's been so fully vetted, right? Her medical records have been reviewed. She's had a psychological evaluation and consultation. And, to trust that we vetted her and she is going to take the best care of your little one. Don't panic too much, I promise. So
Well,
that's
I mean, and
that's
that's what
okay.
I think the perspective,
Yeah.
as this is what we're talking about, a surrogate's perspective. That is one of the most, I think, important things that we're saying today is their perspective is they're carrying this, fragile thing for someone else. So there is that
Hmm.
like added, you know, caution, if you will. Because it's,
Yes.
I'm just even thinking it's like if you how you feel when other people's kids are over playing with your kids. You have an extra eye out because you're watching somebody else's kids. It's different than when, oh, my kids are just
Exactly.
running around the living room. Like, okay, there's somebody else's kid here. And so just your awareness and your decision make, everything is a little heightened. So I think that's important
Hmm.
for intended parents to hear too, is like, please know your surrogate is very aware that they're doing this for you. And so there is that extra caution, typically that's going to be the case where they're going, okay, I'm going to really make decisions maybe even a little bit differently than I would if it was my own pregnancy. I mean, that's one of the things discussed in the direct agreement is like, what are the boundaries, what are yeses and what are nos, and following that direct agreement and making sure those things up front. But just a surrogate's intuition from the beginning is going to be to be more cautious, and I think that is and be not just more cautious but more protective in some ways, would you say?
Yeah, I definitely think that that's the right term to use, more protective, right? And
Yeah,
I think sometimes a lot of the times the medical providers are too. Like they're like, we're gonna make sure like everything's good. And the intended parents always have access to the OBGYN to follow up after appointments and talk with all of that. It's not like the surrogate gets pregnant, she's like, bye everybody, see you later. I mean, you've got a lot of people involved, right? You have the intended parents, the OB who's talking to the intended parents, us as the agency who's talking to the OB, the hospital, the birth registrar, the county to make sure that we can get parentage, right? Working with the attorneys, all the third parties that are involved. You have so many people that are involved in this process that it's okay to just like, we got you. We do.
we got you. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, Niki, this has been great. Gosh, so just illuminating, just from hearing from a surrogate, hearing from someone who knows from all kinds of angles, really. And so I just appreciate you taking off your hosting hat and putting on your guest hat today, and just
Yeah.
kind of what do we want to leave the intended parents with today as they're thinking about what their surrogate's going through, what their surrogate is thinking, and just kind of some final thoughts about what to consider.
It's hard. The whole process is hard. By the time you get, here, you're 2 years in, right? Everybody wants their baby yesterday.
Yeah,
It's okay to have that want, to be nervous, to be cautiously optimistic, but it's okay to check in with her and give her that reassurance too. Sometimes she likes to hear like, "Yeah, I'm doing it right. I'm doing a good job," and that's okay. They're never going to be upset when you reach out and say thank you. So, it's nice to have that conversation and the appreciation between surrogates and intended parents. It's this amazing bond and can potentially be a lifelong friendship or almost like a second family. And
sure.
it's okay to lean into that if that's the route that your journey is going.
I think
That's
that's a
always what I have to
really
say.
a really beautiful place to kind of wrap up today. And yeah, check on your surrogate. Make sure
Yeah.
yeah, extend those thoughts, and just keep building those relationships. It's gonna happen naturally. There's gonna be just that will organically grow over time, of course. And
Mhm.
then as well, lean on your case coordinator when things get tricky too, and let her help assist in that beautiful relationship as well. And
Absolutely.
um, Well, yeah, thank you for your time today, Nikki. This is great. And surrogates and intended parents, anyone listening, we, like Nikki said, we got you. And we're just excited to be a part of these beautiful journeys. And of course, anyone listening, any questions or want to talk about, if anyone is inspired today to be a surrogate or ready to start their family building journey as an intended parent, reach out, go to familysourceconsultants.com and we would love to hear from you. And
Yes.
thank you again for today.
Yep. Thank you.